Thank you. Thank you very much. And now you can make the questions to the participants. We've got like 20 minutes or so. Yes, Bart, Yolanda, as you wish.
Like the basis of anthropological fieldwork, I don't see the contradiction between understanding and understanding, because the goal should be understanding, and you do it by understanding, no?
Well, understanding is just a term, but it emphasized the relation this equal situation for me and the other. Not that I'm the observer and I'm the someone's below and someone's under in this relation.
I don't think there are any anthropologists here who put themselves above their research subject. I mean, I'm a photographer. I don't do that. I mean, that's the basis of the understanding.
It means, that you are going there with the purpose to get some information, and we are going but the
yeah, that's a bit confused to me. Why then are you going?
Well, of course, the knowing and understanding, let's say, in the without this bad relation, is the goal. But the way in which we are obtaining the knowledge should be different than just. I don't know.
If I could just come to that debate.
Yeah, I think she.
Yeah, because I am dangerous.
Yeah.
I think the idea is that, in some senses, the kind of ideas they have presented here could be compared to some of the ideas put forward by anthropologists like Viveros de Castro, who argues, for instance, that anthropology, on the whole, tends to take other people's thought, so the way they think, as its object. And so if the point of anthropology is to produce a kind of knowledge about knowledge, a meta-knowledge, you necessarily situate it at a higher level. This is like inevitable. Yeah, it's a kind of a philosophical obligation. And he argues, perhaps naively, perhaps optimistically, perhaps because he read too much French philosophy, that we should practice a form of isomorphic anthropology where the native's thought is seen as an equivalent social philosophy to our own.
Yeah.
In which case, you can then say that by the anthropologist as exegete of a native philosophy, or a kind of knowledge which is a product of that particular interaction, can be seen as an isomorphic anthropology, which could be compared to a Buberian or Levinasian vision here. Whether or not that's practicable, whether or not that's not something anthropologists already do to an extent is absolutely debatable. But I think this is kind of this sort of idea they might be aiming for.
Yolanda? Okay.
No, I wanted to elaborate. And also is...
Briefly, please.
Yeah, well, we have 20 minutes, no?
Yeah.
All right. Well, this, as you said, there's no anthropologist that doesn't want to understand, all right? But to understand is not a straightforward thing. It's not straightforward. It's not something like, like an history of anthropology give us evidence that like many anthropologists before us have try to understand the other, but yeah, how can we know? But how can we know that our understanding is a better understanding?
Because the opposition understanding.
Yeah, what?
It just was another point of view.
I mean, is to elaborate, is to say that probably understanding is not enough.
Yes.
That's why, and because understanding until now has been mediated by the idea of an object and a subject and so on. That's it.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Yolanda?
Yeah. Well, I have to say that I have enjoyed a lot this panel. I have enjoyed a lot the conference, but this panel especially because is very exciting. Then I will do very fast question for each one. For Carlos, I found very interesting what you have introduced us, because it's to find the otherness inside us as a group in the European context. And maybe it's very important to recuperate this other history, because the roots of this way to civilize the world is very extended, and I think that you have a lot of things to do. No, because and this only if you can talk a little bit about this for Jordi, about the it's so exciting too, and then about this brotherhood image of the Spanish protectorate. Something that I'm thinking about, no, and also is related with the work of Carlos, no. That is, the brotherhood is a discourse, but is not practice. The example of how this is a practice is discourse and not practice is thinking in Sahara. Sahara were also Muslim people, but the segregation of the space in the settlements in the cities were reality. And at the end, obviously we know this of Equatorial Guinea, that is the most far in Africa, no? A Spanish colony. But if this happened in Sahara, I think that we have to think a little more what was happening in Morocco. And for Matthew also, I enjoyed a lot. You have us the other few times, but if you can give a little more information about which items maybe are, which items can formalize this citizen, the modern citizen, in the national identity, the national to be Moroccan, for this for Mohammed VI. Do you know what I mean? We can talk about how the teachers and in the schools they try to promote a correct new citizen, Moroccan one, but at the end, what you think are the order and the content of this national identity, this religion is Arabic, which do you think is the mix of this national identity? This is, and thank you so much. Well, I don't say nothing for you because you have replay, but I enjoyed a lot. Thank you so much.
Well, I have to say that Araceli and Leila, they have done a great job with this panel, especially, I think, because our papers, they complement each other perfectly, from my point of view. And, well, just, I could talk like for hours about my thing, yeah, but just wanted to say that I was trying to do, and I want to go forward with this, is to give an answer to the demands that have been done, people that have been doing in post-colonial theory to overcome the dichotomy between colonizer and colonized. But at the same time, because many people, for example, Baba, he has tried to do it with the concept of hybridity. But many people at the same time has criticized Baba that he's forgetting power relations. You know, like using hybridity and encounter and all this, sometimes it forgets that there's always somebody that is suffering, like oppression, you know. So elaborating the concept of Baba with this, the idea of civilization, instead of the difference between colony and metropolis, I can explain all these relations that were established between people within Europe with people in the colony, oppression in both sides, even the concept of hybridity can be used as a phenomenon that also had the seed of oppression in it. And that's it.
Bon, cher Yolande, tu as très bon raison à faire ces remarques, surtout sur la question du Sahara, que tu sais que je n'ai aucune compétence pour parler. Mais c'est vrai, il n'existe pas la pratique, il existe la fiction de la fraternité comme un discours politique, comme un discours qui a l'intention de pas simplement de convaincre à certaines opinions publiques, soit espagnoles, soit marocaines, sinon, à mon avis, a une volonté de s'exposer dans la scène publique afin de montrer que l'Espagne, le nouveau régime, veut aussi la volonté d'être ouverte, fraternelle, tolérante, jusqu'au point de faire partie de la promotion de ce rituel. Non? Mais je pense qu'en même temps, on peut refaire la comparaison avec ça c'est pour être la question des historiens, pas la mienne, de voir comment les Marseillais ont utilisé aussi ce processus de gestion, de management de rituel pour éviter cette idée que je viens de dire dans mon exposé, de penser que le rituel soit un moyen pour mobiliser les gens en contre un pouvoir à un autre. Et je trouve qu'il y a un processus de récréation de rituel du point de vue, surtout dans les symboliques. Tu sais, c'est comment, qui a le droit de parler sur la religion, qui promeut la religion, qui promeut les rituels, qui donne de la possibilité parce que le rituel soit quand même bien mené, soit bien organisé, etc. Je trouve qu'il y a une volonté claire, pas du point de vue simplement idéologique de cette fraternité francoïste. C'est pas simplement une question de... C'est une technologie de gouvernement, pour utiliser un langage, une terminologie foucauldienne. Et la question sur le Sahara, tu as toutes les raisons du monde, je dois me former plus encore pour ça. Mais dans les périodes dans lesquelles Franco suit encore en promotionnant les pèlerinages à la Mecque, dans ces moments, son objectif, c'est précisément faire la compétence au Maroc. C'est-à-dire parce qu'au premier moment de l'indépendance, évidemment, le Maroc suivent, les nouveaux gouvernements suivent à promouvoir le pèlerinage au Maroc. Ils suivent dans la même compagnie espagnole, c'est-à-dire la Transméditerranée, en utilisant ces navires pour porter des pèlerins à la Mecque. Et ça produit un certain problème avec, évidemment, les patrons de ces compagnies navires et le gouvernement espagnol. C'est-à-dire, bon, il y a le business, mais il y a aussi la loyauté. Qu'est-ce qu'on doit faire? Mais je trouve que c'est un moment dans lequel on a la volonté de suivre encore avec cette idée de penser que Franco, protecteur de l'islam, protecteur des musulmans, encore on reste à faire quelque chose avec les populations d'Ifni et de Sahara qui sont quand même espagnoles. C'est autre chose à bien mener.
My turn. I have 2 minutes to explain the ideas of Mohammed VI about Moroccan national identity. Excellent. It's not a straightforward question, clearly, or a straightforward answer. The Moroccan schooling system is not trying to produce Salafists. I think we can be clear about that. There is an idea of ut pluribus unum, clearly. There's this idea that Moroccan identity is forged out of the merging of Berber identity, Jewish identity, a tiny bit of Europe, and a fair chunk of Arabo-Islamic culture, it seems to me. In my experience, I spent a lot of time sat in primary schools, talking to teachers as well. it seems to me that in the public statements of the king, as well as in the general ideological framework which is provided by a school environment, there's an idea of an intellectual openness towards Europe and European civilization, and a construction of a form of identity that reaches out across the Arab world, which is to say that there's not this idea that Morocco presents itself as a crossroads of civilization, but in fact the identity goes horizontal and the aspiration goes north. And the ideal Moroccan citizen then is, I mean, there's obviously the kind of the holy triptych of Halal Watan al-Malik, of course, yeah, there's the flag, but what my point was that the idea is to produce citizens whose primary identity is national, and rather than being regional or tribal, and in that it's generally very successful. And I was trying to show how this has failed in the area, and instead you've got people whose primary identity is religious or ethnic, because the schooling system fails in its task of transmitting a particular variation of a national ideology. Now, of course, you could write 8 theses on the production of Moroccan national ideology and what it amounts to. My point was not to make a clear statement about what it is, but to show that the acts of transmission fail, clearly. That was more, but yeah, I think that more or less expresses.
Pablo Dominguez?
Yeah, this is a question for Matthew also. I will probably also fail to express fully my question and my point of view, but I'll try by starting to say that. So I enjoyed very much your talk. It was like very close to my own experience, even if I didn't focus on that object or subject. But I felt it very close. I followed also the introduction of school in my own field, and how this influenced or participated in local cultural, particularly on cultural changes and religiosity. So I kind of followed you very well. I was very interested, and I appreciated very much how in 20 minutes you reached to give us such a dense ethnographic description of what was going on, you know, summarizing it so well. So thank you for that. And my question here comes in a critical way, because this is what science is about, and with which we can enjoy most, I believe. And I think you enjoy one of the most of all of us, as I've felt up to now. So you won't be very hurt by it, my comment. Just please take it constructively. My point is that I see, well, okay, you want to show how the Moroccan state failed in its mission. I mean, in a way that I feel you drew your presentation directly to that point. Okay, you got 20 minutes to demonstrate that. Okay, I think there's many more details going on. School is doing more things than just creating Salafism. Even if we synthesize, in 20 minutes we have to synthesize, even if we synthesize, you don't need to summarize the whole process into, you know, state is producing Salafists. Because that's like the basic message you sent us, and I think it's exaggerated. I think there's a lot of things happening also that they're helping to produce Moroccans in that national identity sense that Yolanda was asking, you were just describing now. It is contributing also to that. And in fact, it is fighting in some way the production of Salafists. And but my main point, because of course you don't have maybe time to point all the detail of this, but you could have mentioned it a bit more maybe, your presentation. And but the main point of my question is how you explain us that people can't send their children to schools, secondary schools in the plain, which I agree. This is the experience I observed, only the rich, and came back to work in some business. So school permitted them to also get on better with their business, so they progressed, but only those that had money. How could then the people who couldn't send their kids down could send them to the Salafist school 5 years in Ouarzazate? Because in my case, those that couldn't send them to Marrakesh, they didn't send them to anywhere else, because they just couldn't send them anywhere. So your whole thesis, I mean, maybe probably because you didn't explain something, you were just finishing at the end, but basically would fall down if we take in account that the fact that the state doesn't give enough support for schooling children on the long term does not produce Salavism, because that would just produce that they can't go anywhere. So, you know what I mean, my point?
Yeah,
maybe I missed some.
If I gave the impression that the only thing the state schooling system does is to produce Salafists, that was clearly a mistake on my part. It's obviously, it was a polemical stance. I was trying to show the unintended consequences. Schools do produce modern Moroccan citizens of the kind they want. They also produce, shepherds, and they also produce Salafists. I was trying to show one line of unintended consequence. I wasn't trying to suggest this was an inevitable or a monolithic process. And if I talked about the interactions between the students and the teachers, that would have been much clearer, because there it's really about opacity and miscommunication, whereas when you get to the institutional level, it's much cruder, right? Why do people send their children south? Many reasons. For some, it's because the children don't necessarily attain a high enough academic level, and that's in part because the structures of education don't work very well, because most of the teachers are very young, they don't speak any Berber, they're not trained to teach children who don't speak the language they're teaching in. It's in part because it's cheaper to send your child to a seminary, because the food and accommodation is taken care of, and because they're in small places out of the way. Often they aren't in Ouarzazate, they're in small towns. There's not the life outside school, which requires money to finance it. The institutions themselves are warmer to the students. They feel integrated and welcomed, whereas in a state school they feel stigmatized and rejected. As one man, I went to Dimnat, I got my hair cut. He said, "Where do you live?" I said, "Up in the mountains." He said, "Oh, with the monkeys." Yes, that kind of attitude, right? They don't get that in the seminary. All of these factors together. They also have, as a Quranic student, you have an opportunity to earn some money on the side at circumcisions or funerals or at weddings by performing certain types of recitation and prayer. All in all, that makes it an easier, cheaper, nicer option.
Okay, I'm sorry, but we have to leave it here. And now we've got the coffee break for half an hour. We would be very thankful if you were here at 5:15, very punctual, because we have the video conference of Emilio Espadola, and you cannot be late. You shouldn't be late, because he will be waiting for us. And now we have to stop it here, because we have to try the video conference and so on. So please, half an hour of coffee break. Have fun.